is Halloween, this is Halloween, 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 Halloween.
In this town we call home, everyone hail to the pumpkin song.
Hello boils and ghouls, and welcome to my first video blog. And tonight I'm going to be talking about the best movies to watch on Halloween night. Or I guess any night in October, because I like to think of Halloween as a month-long season and not just a one-night celebration. But on Halloween night, people like to celebrate in a wide variety of ways, but most people will at some point turn off all the lights and let a movie take the excitement to the next level. And since Halloween comes once a year, you can't waste 2 precious hours on a film that's either lousy or just not very conducive to the festivities, because a great horror film doesn't necessarily make a great Halloween film. And to make my top 10 list, I followed a simple set of rules. The first one is that the movie just has to be fun to watch. It should have a relatively fast pace, and it should keep the energy flowing in the room. And the second rule is that it can't present seasons or locations or weather that completely contradicts with autumn. For example, Jaws is one of the most perfect films ever, but it doesn't make a good Halloween movie. And the third rule is that the length is important. No Halloween movie should go over 2 hours long, because that's just not being very productive with your time. And number 4 is that the film can't be very sadistic or mean-spirited, because films like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or The Last House on the Left, or Henry, A Portrait of a Serial Killer, they tend to depress a lot of people, and they kind of serve as party killers. So avoid anything that is too disturbing. And lastly, if the film isn't scary, then it better be fucking drenched in Halloween spirit. Creepshow came out in 1982. It's often referred to as the best horror anthology. It contains 5 different tales of terror, all written by Stephen King and directed by George A. Romero. And the special effects are all done by Tom Savini. And so there's just an enormous amount of talent behind this movie. I'd say all 5 of the tales are very interesting and entertaining. My favorite would have to be Something to Tide You Over, which features Leslie Nielsen playing a madman who buries his wife and his wife's lover, played by Ted Danson, up to their necks in sand. He buries them up to their necks in sand just before the tide comes in. All 5 tend to focus on universal fears, but never for a moment do we feel any kind of discomfort, because the movie never takes itself very seriously, and we're just having the time of our lives watching some of these despicable, selfish characters get exactly what they deserve. And also in the cast are 2 horror veterans, Adrienne Barbeau and Tom Atkins, who I especially loved in Night of the Creeps, which is another great one for Halloween. And let's see, there's also Hal Holbrook, and a very young, goofy-looking Ed Harris, and E.G. Marshall stars in the final tale, which is They're Creeping Up on You. He stars in that one along with about 10,000 cockroaches. Yeah, I've been a huge fan of Creepshow for as long as I can remember, and I got to see it on a big screen for the first time a couple months ago. It was playing in one of the best theaters in Portland, Oregon, and everybody there was just having a blast. And it's so obvious that we haven't seen a movie like this in a theater in such a long time. And Stephen King and George A. Romero teamed up a few years later, I think it was 1987, and they did Creepshow 2, which is also worth checking out, especially because of the second tale, the middle story called The Raft. It's still one of the most intense and frightening things I've ever seen. Monster House, a performance capture animated film from 2006. And it's about a group of suburban children who believe that the house down the street, owned by old cranky Mr. Nevercracker, is not only haunted but alive. It has the ability to lure children to its front porch by presenting them with their favorite toys that were taken from them by Mr. Nevercracker. and then the house proceeds to get the kids inside by any means necessary. It's very dark and twisted, but it's completely innocent and fun. It became a box office success, mostly because of younger audiences, but I always felt the target audience were people in their 20s and 30s. It's just such a nostalgic, sentimental, quirky little movie that takes us back to the Halloweens of our childhood, especially for those of you who grew up in the 1980s, because that's where the movie was set, or when the movie was set. I think this movie will appeal a lot to anyone who liked The Nightmare Before Christmas, or Monsters, Inc., or The Corpse Bride, or even Donnie Darko. And it's got a really good cast, too. You'll hear the voices of Maggie Gyllenhaal, and Jason Lee, John Heder, Kathleen O'Hara, Fred Willard, who is always welcome, and even Kathleen Turner, who Steve Buscemi plays Mr. Nevercracker, and Kathleen Turner plays the dark, twisted soul of the house. Goth Messiah Tim Burton was the most perfect choice to resurrect the classic Washington Irving novel, and Johnny Depp was the most perfect choice to play Ichabod Crane. They made Sleepy Hollow in 1999, an original film that was unlike any of the other Sleepy Hollow adaptations, Legend of Sleepy Hollow adaptations. And it excited the horror community, but it also brought in a lot of newcomers to the theaters that maybe weren't used to seeing a decapitation on screen, let alone 10 or 15. All of the beheadings are shown up close in full detail, yet they don't look particularly gruesome. It's more done in a playfully morbid way. And despite Sleepy Hollow being a graphic and dark movie, it's so breathtaking to look at. I love how there's this veil of mist that floats in every exterior scene, and each piece of architecture is looming and threatening, and they become characters of their own. It's a great autumn treat because you'll see jack-o'-lanterns and scarecrows and swirling dead leaves. You'll see Christopher Walken, Christopher Lee, and even a certain shot that will remind you of Large Marge from Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Sleepy Hollow is going to go over well at, I think, any Halloween party, just because Tim Burton and Johnny Depp are two of the most universally beloved artists in film, and whenever they team up, it's a big event. Alice in Wonderland comes out next year, and it's going to be huge. Everyone I talk to is excited about it, including me.
I don't wanna be buried in a pet cemetery.
The next movie on the list is can't do it. Do it live. Do it live! Fuck it! Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live! Fucking thing sucks! For those of you who prefer the over-the-top ghoulishness of the Evil Dead trilogy or Reanimator, should get a kick out of the number 7 film, Night of the Demons 2. It's, thanks to its sexy young cast members, excessive cartoonish violence, hilarious sound effects, a heavy metal soundtrack, and frequent doses of nudity, this film seems to have one goal: to see how long it can keep that goofy grin on your face. I don't think you have to see the original Night of the Demons to appreciate this one. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that Hull House is evil, and that its demonized hostess Angela doesn't take kindly to strangers, especially since the opening scene ends with her slicing and dicing a couple of Jehovah's Witnesses. Unlike the original, Angela finds a way out of the house this time to spread her wicked ways, and she ends up going to a Catholic dormitory to terrorize the students. The dormitory, the Catholic school, is run by Sister Gloria, who provides much of the film's humor. In the first half of the film, she's the no-nonsense curmudgeon that punishes the students that misbehave, and with her yardstick separates the couples that are standing too close together, insisting that they leave a little room for the Holy Ghost. But once the students start playing basketball with their own severed heads, she decides to prepare for the battle between good and evil by practicing her kung fu moves and filling up super soakers with holy water. This film is crazy. And it uses every cliche in the book, especially the whole we'll find her a whole lot faster by splitting up technique.